we live? We're live. Hello, welcome to another episode of Duly Noted, a podcast for musicians searching for guidance, inspiration, resources, and a little bit of levity. I'm your girl, Rachel Ivy Alex, and today I am joined by Susan Erwin Prowse, a phenomenal musician, entertainer, and boss. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here today. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I had this intention of interviewing people who I look up to and I believe have made a strong, bold career in music. And this music industry is very vast, very huge. And I don't think any single person just does one thing. And I thought that you would be the perfect interviewer because you wear many hats.
Yes, I
So,
do.
would you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about what you do in the music industry?
Sure. Well, I've been at professional music for 21 years, and I grew up playing classical piano, started in church, found some pageants and some talent shows because I loved piano. Piano was my thing. I was scared to sing, and I went to college for math and science, had a degree in math, and started working in radio frequency engineering in corporate world right out of college. And I was just searching for what I really wanted to do. I never really kind of felt like I was still in that searching mode, even though I had a great job. And I discovered piano bars here in Little Rock. And so at Willie D's, which is still alive and doing well here in the Little Rock River Market in Arkansas, just really found that there was these piano players, as you know, leading the crowd in this awesome, fun party, singing along. And just, I was like, this is crazy. And like my friends and I would go down there, but then I met some players who explained to me the concept. And when they explained the science behind the pacing and what songs and how to use in the sing along and the timing and the commands, then I really geeked out and I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So to shorten that, 21 years of piano bar, really. And over those years, after I left corporate world, and it takes an entrepreneur spirit to stay alive for this many years. I mean, you really have to understand how to be self-employed and all of that. So yes, I do wear many hats, but it all comes back to that live show. And that's what keeps me going. I'll never want to not be on, be on a stage performing. And so that's evolved over the years. And most recently, and we can talk about what many places I went all over the world, and I'm back in Arkansas now, but I met my husband on the stage at Willie D's in 2016. We got married in 2017, and we have our duo Cliff and Susan, which is rooted in that very high energy show, but he's on guitar. So I'm still on keys. We're still doing a lot of the same philosophies and science of the show, but he's on guitar and fiddle. So, but yeah, music has been my bread and butter for 21 years now, which is crazy to think it's been 2 decades, but it's been a good, crazy, the best of times and the worst of times. And I'm happy to share all of that with you.
I love it. Okay, so you were in the corporate world, but you had your classical piano background, and then you saw this dueling show of sorts, and you were like, I want to do that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'll never forget. It was Mike Matthews, who is Dave Matthews, not the Dave Matthews that we think of, but they're brothers who were some of the OGs in the piano bar world.
Okay.
And they were there helping open up Willie D's, and Michael Hosh and Tommy Smith. And these are guys that were like, opening the club, and they knew how to do the concept really well. And so it's funny, I got up to sing because, like I said, I was scared. I had a couple of liquid courage shots. And
Sure.
I sang I Will Remember You by Sarah McLachlan. Like what song? Like I got up there and sang the slowest, most party deadening song you could think of. Anyway, and so there weren't any females in this market, and it's been a while before females were on staff with the piano bar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I got up, so nobody had seen a girl before, and I sang, and my friends were there, and as I remember it, I was a rock star immediately.
Right.
But no, I was not. Like in hindsight, I was scared, the whole thing. But anyway, so they taught me. So they knew that I had the aptitude to learn because they were like, oh, do you want to learn to do this? And one of them took me in the corner, Mike Matthews, and he goes, watch the players. They're about to do, and I think it was like, Hey Baby. They were like, they're about to have a guy-girl split, and they're going to get the guys against the girls. And he explained to me what was about to happen. And then I saw it happen, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is awesome. So it was like this perfect blend of just me geeking out to what, I don't know, it's like human psychology.
Your logistical mind mixed with your artistry. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, there's actually like a method to this show as opposed to just,
Right.
one song after another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's I love that, and I constantly study it, and I just think it's never that fundamental thing that the piano bar space is rooted in has a longevity to it. Even though we have to evolve with our pop culture and the songs we learn, there's a science behind it. So that mixed with my love to perform, and sorry, my dogs may want to say
I
hello,
love it.
but that mixed with my love to perform and just the being young and ready to find myself, that's what
Yeah.
had me end up in the piano bar world.
I love it. And I've, thanks to you, I've been able to do some shows over there. And at Willie D's, they really are all about that dueling piano show. It's a specific type of show. And just like you said, it's so transferable to other performances that you do that are high energy because you learn your crowd interaction and something completely different than classical. But you got into the piano bars, and there weren't a lot of women in the piano bars, as you noticed. So, is that what inspired you to build this piano ladies community?
Yeah, so Piano Ladies, the organization started, well, and by the way, we just now went full on nonprofit. So we've been acting as a nonprofit. I mean, we've always just been give back to the community. So I'll sum that up real quick. In 2019, I just found some girls that I knew, and so in the piano bar world, there's not many of us. We're very much in a male dominated industry. I was the sorority president in college. So I knew this structure of
Love it.
sorority, sisterhood,
Okay.
and I've always loved to give back and like meet other people and just, learn, and always like I feel like pay it forward. Somebody taught me, so I need to turn around and help others. And so that's just
There
been
it is.
very much part of me in general. And so I did all of that as best I could. But when I realized that there were so many of us female singing piano entertainers around the world that I had heard of, and I always wanted to find all of them. I knew of like Cindy Chin, and there were several that were doing it when I first got started, and I would go and try to find them and see their shows. But even then, it was hard because that was 20 years ago. There weren't very many of them,
Mm,
and so we started. There were more of us that started to come out into the light, and I found them, and I realized they had not met each other.
yeah.
So like the twins had not met Dana D or Jennifer Lane or some of these heavyweights, these like legends that we have in the industry. So I thought, well, let's just start a conference every year and get together. So in 2019, Vegas started, then the pandemic hit and
Mm.
we paused it at that point. But now we've got, I guess this will be our 5th year going into Nashville, August 2025. So yeah, I think that answer, I kind of went off on a rabbit trail there, but
No,
it
I
was really rooted in wanted to find us the sisterhood in this unique niche of our industry and bring us together to learn from each other and grow and have this cool bond. So it's been awesome.
I really relate. That's in part why I built this podcast, is because I really wanted to build community amongst musicians. And it is really interesting when I get on the phone and I catch up with girls who do the same exact gig as me. And we're talking about, well, if I move to this city, I'm by a regional airport. And that's not, you start talking about travel and the things that apply to us specifically that you're like, oh, nobody thinks like this. But,
Yeah.
we do. I found you through the Piano Ladies Convention, through Des Irwin.
Ray Erwin is vice president, Tammy Tanner is treasurer, and Jen Porter is our secretary. So we're officially board members, and we've got all of this really formalized, which is, we feel like we're big girls now because it was crazy
Mhm.
trying to go through all that nonprofit status. But it's going to be really opening up more doors for funding, for scholarships for girls. Like we're going to really
Brilliant.
do some big things now, and we're excited. So I didn't realize that that's how you and I connected, but that's a case in point where
Yeah.
birds of a feather, we get together and this all can turn into something bigger and much greater than just each one of us individually.
That's the biggest part. Before I even found the Piano Ladies Convention, I was praying for female community. Like I
Oh,
was
good.
like literally writing it in my journal. Like this year I'm going to find female community. And Des was the one who kind of like shifted. You should really think about doing this. And conventions, I will say, for musicians have just been really great in networking and not necessarily, even if you have the idea of making money or an opportunity coming out of it, sometimes it's just friends that you meet and then that changes your world.
Some of my best friends are from the Piano Ladies. Like and it's because we're all coming together with the same goal in mind, and it's been beautiful. And so I'm excited. I can't wait to see where it continues to grow.
Yeah,
And
me too. Me
so
too. I love that. I love the scholarships. Okay, so that is active. Also, you're not only just doing the Piano Ladies and these piano bar gigs and dueling gigs, you also have your original music as well. So you're an original
Yeah.
artist. Can you tell me a
Yeah,
little bit about that?
sure, sure. So I say BC before Cliff because my Cliff and Susan is our artist name. He says
Right.
BS before Susan, so
Yeah.
that's. But so I being on the road, and I don't know how much you're going to talk about life as a traveling musician, but it can get lonely, and
I do know.
it was always difficult to have a relationship. I'll just say that, and that can be, we'll table that for maybe a discussion later. However, I was young, single, and traveling the world, and one of my goals was to have, I just said I want to at least have released an album when I'm 80 years old, and I'm like, here's what I did with my life. I wanted to have some body of work,
Yeah.
and so right before I met Cliff, I met a producer, and I went in and we wrote 12 songs, and I had released an album out of Nashville. So that was like the goal was to have a body of work. I don't know that I was ever like, I want to be famous and a famous country music singer. It wasn't necessarily that. It was just I wanted to have something that I had contributed outside of just cover shows in this craft of piano bars.
Yeah.
So I did that in 2015. And then I learned a lot I had some people come, some managers, and this thing that kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth. And so I was at a very much a soul searching place in my life. Mental health was not okay at that point. It was just, I had some school of hard knocks at that point in my life. And then I met Cliff. So there is a body of work called Under Susan Erwin, which was my album, and then a small EP that I did. And then I met Cliff, and I would say that's when my original artistry and everything started to click because we did it right. We found our sound as a duo and then started really just doing, I don't know, I understood the lay of the land. And of course, now I married a producer, so that helps,
Helps. Hey, girl.
Oh,
I love it.
I'm sitting in his producer chair right now. So it's been awesome to explore that space and put some music out in the world that feels right as an artist. And I think flipping this back to the piano bar world, we sometimes have an identity crisis because we literally are influenced by every pop song of every decade, every genre.
Yeah.
And that can be good, but that can also lead to a little bit of an identity crisis on who are we as an artist. It's like, who am I when I
Absolutely.
sit down outside
Yeah.
of that space? And so I feel more confident in who I am as an original artist now than I did in those earlier days. Learned a lot. I think we all learn something when we're coming out with our own music and stuff. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it's out there under Cliff and Susan, and we have an album and some songs, and we've got a pretty heavy load of songs that are coming the next 18 months to push out our sophomore album project. So we've got some.
It's excellent, and the production is wonderful. You both sound wonderful, and you're so tasteful with your solos. Spitfire is the latest one.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Yeah, about Susan.
yeah. Cliff wrote that song about me. Somebody said the word Spitfire at lunch or at a dinner one time, and I said that's a good song title. And a year later, we had it. He wrote it, and it's like where serious meets casual. It's like a little spice, a little sass. Like I would say female empowerment, really, but from a
Yeah.
male perspective. So it's
Exactly,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it suits you. And, I was listening, I do relate because, after I went to Berklee College of Music, it was so jazz influenced. Everything was jazz, 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 and they really just pumped you with so much information there. I dropped out after a year, and I remember taking 2 years of just messing with songs and writing until I actually felt like I found my voice,
yeah.
So I do relate to that. You do have to do the soul searching, and then, you met Cliff, and how wonderful it is to have a producer in the house.
Right. And multi-instrumentalist, arranger. I mean, I could go on and on. He's a savant I mean, he's just crazy good. And our brains are wired differently. I think because of my 10 years of classical training, I'm very I think
Mhm.
very mathematic and almost boxy. And
Yep.
I'd say he's round. And so I have learned a lot. He and I are a great yin and yang, even
Yeah.
personality wise as well, not just musically. And so I'll say this, where he brought me and elevated my musicianship and make I aspire to be at that point or his level. He, on the flip side, my entertainment, my stage presence, and the things that I learned in the piano bar world, he was very introverted. And so I've brought him up. And so we've kind of it's been this really cool partnership of helping each other into this
Yeah.
place where we are now. And so a lot of people say, I just love what you did with Cliff, because he used to be like, he just sit and stare at his guitar. He was a phenomenal guitarist, but he would not perform. And so
Yeah.
now he's an equal partner. And so that's been a good partnership from both angles.
It's brilliant. It's something I wanted to touch on. You have this incredible ability when you're on stage to engage with the crowd. I've seen it myself. You're
Thank you.
very, and I've seen this with other other female artists. I would say Angela Madrid is another example of this, another doula in our world. But big eyes when looking at the audience, you're really engaging with the eyes. And that's just something as I'm
You have big eyes.
no, but it's huge. It brings people in because some people they do. They're looking at their hands or they're, or they're not engaging. That it's the eyes. The eyes
Mhm.
are the window to the soul. So I see that a lot with you. But not only are you an incredible entertainer, you are extremely prolific with just everything that you seem to manage. It seems to me like you have a lot of time management skills, and I wanted to ask you about that
Sure.
when it comes to managing your days when you're not working, when you don't have a gig, or how do you prepare for a gig? Like, what is your routine?
Well, my routine every day to keep my mental health, because I do wear a lot of hats, and
Mhm.
you know, I have to really be methodical about, well, first of all, my diet. I've learned that I have to be on a certain type of diet. If I'm not, then it triggers my anxiety. So, ketosis, the keto diet, is something that I did the greater part of last year. I did keto and I dropped some weight. I wanted to like look better, but then after I lost the weight, I was like, this makes me feel better. And then I
Yep.
noticed when I would eat sugar or processed foods, then it would just spiral me. So, diet, so taking care of me, my physical health, mainly
Yeah.
diet. I could work out better than I do, so that's one goal I still need to
Same.
be better at. So that's important. But my daily goals, like I sit down with Cliff probably, well, weekly. We sit down and go, what's the week goals? What do you have to do? What am I doing? Because if we don't, well, then we would literally not achieve everything. I would do a bad job at all the things that I have going on. Just my mental health. In the beginning, in the mornings, I started doing morning writings, which is rooted in the artist's way. And so I have a journal, I write, and your brain is on a certain frequency in the morning. When you wake up, it's important to be methodical. Don't just turn to your phone and let the world take over your life. You need to really like set your intentions. I write gratitude stuff. I start with gratitude, which is another way to really put your head in a space that allows you to receive and get good things going for your brain. And then affirmations, like writing down and saying, I said to this before we started the interview, but like, God surprised me today. And whoever your God is, I don't care, just universe, surprise me today. And those intentions in the morning changed my life. Like it literally helped me like
Wow.
just start seeing more, even some things that I listen to while I sleep are meditations around money mindset. And I don't let any negative get into my brain, especially when I'm sleeping or when I wake up in the morning. And then beyond that, I have massive to-do lists that are prioritized. And I start my day going, what's my big three? Making sure I know that the main big three things that I need to accomplish that day are prioritized, and then everything else fits in around it. And then scaling, I have a VA, I have a virtual assistant who works for me now full time that has changed my life because there was no way I could do everything without her. So as we were able to financially start investing in a team member, that helped out as well. But I still like my to-do list. Like some people work in big, massive like spreadsheets or programs, which I love a good piece of technology, don't get me wrong, but I still like my piece of white paper that I scratch through
Writing it. Yes, I like to write it
done,
down.
and
Yeah.
then I'll rewrite it the next day, and it's kind of part of my morning ritual to write that out. I may not write it out every day, but if things have changed enough, then I'll write it all back out under each category of the projects. I have a way of doing it, so I don't know if that answers your question, but it's kind of a process that I have worked out to do on daily. Starts with my daily routine.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Yeah, it's effective too. I go back and forth between those phases. Some phases I'm just lazy and then I don't get things done, as you said. So
Yeah.
I love a to-do list. I love actually writing it down. If I don't write something down physically in my agenda, then it doesn't exist. Even if
Yeah.
it's on the phone, like I have to write it down.
I have a note. I have a note in my phone. This is what keeps me from getting nervous about not remembering. If I'm driving down the road, somebody says, "Hey, I need you to blah blah blah," or I think of something that's important. I have a note in my phone that I just go and put it in, and then I can just go, "Whoop, that's okay. I'll go see that later, and I'll take care of it." And then I can move along with my day. That used to be a trigger because I'd be like, "Oh no, I think I forgot something." So that's my way of while I'm running down the road or don't have my list to write it in. I do have a note, but it always somehow transfers. So I've got kind of two of them, electronic as well as the written
Yeah.
one, that I bounce
Yeah.
back and forth.
It made it
But
foolproof.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a better way, but that's just my way, and it seems to work so far. And
It's working great. I just when I look at how successful it is that you guys have been over the past couple of years of knowing you, I do think there's a lot of time management. So that makes sense that you guys have your weekly get together and you plan out what you're doing because you're releasing songs consistently. You also are performing. Like how many shows a year are you performing this year?
On average, 200. I think we were just under 200 this past year, and it varies, but it's right around 200 a year. And so, we go out and do the month-long contracts in Santa Barbara and in the Caribbean, and those are like 26 shows for that month. So that's when we rack up the most. When we're here home in Arkansas, we're doing 2 to 4 a week, sometimes 5. It depends. Like December, I felt like we played every day because
Yeah.
the holidays.
Yeah.
So I think we it was just under 200 last year,
Mhm.
and we're starting to want to try and do more original shows. So
Right.
that's been where I don't take as many out of state lengthy contracts that end up with the more shows. We're kind of being more methodical about those.
It's smart and it is hard. It's something I too have thought of, for the past several years of how do I funnel my piano bar cover gigs? How do I funnel these gigs, the money I'm getting, and what percentage am I putting of those shows into my original art? Because, your original music is an investment. So it is something that you have
Right.
to manage. You have to manage how you're going about that. It's tricky. I feel like a
Well,
lot of artists have to deal with that, the cover gigs that supplement, their original
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And so what I've started to do is because I'm at a point in my career where I can pick up the phone. I'm very blessed to be able to book if I want. So that's awesome. And so I could pick up the phone. I could book out the whole year if I want to. So what I'm doing now is going, okay, what do we need to survive financially?
Right.
And we've got not just our live shows now, but we've got some other things we've diversified. I do some marketing for some venues, and I mean, I've got a skill set that I've learned to monetize and have a little side hustle that fits with our career. So I'm
Brilliant.
able to offset some of that. So right now, like I have, like we're going to see CMA Fest in June. We're going to be in
Okay.
Nashville.
Yeah.
And I just blocked off my whole weekend. If I didn't block it off, then I'd end up booking it and I wouldn't go. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be there. Maybe we'll pick up a venue. Maybe we won't. So
Right.
I'm starting to block off the weekends I want to focus on maybe holding it during festival season in October. Like block off that weekend so that when a festival comes knocking, or if I go and try to book a festival, then we're available. So I'm not painting ourselves into a corner and having
Yeah.
to, I mean, I had to turn down a major artist opener spot last week, which was awesome to be asked, but I was booked and I was like, oh, this is when you go, thank you. And oh, it was so exciting. But I was like, I'm not going to cancel on somebody. I can't cancel. If
I
there was a
salute you.
way,
I salute you for that. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just, and it was like, man, it'll pay off in the end. Doing, I'm a woman of my word. I've always been taught that, and so it's like,
I appreciate that.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a way to move it, that'd be one thing, but there's not, and that we're the headliner for this festival we're playing, so I'm like, I can't. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. But
No,
one day.
doesn't make sense. But I know those opportunities come and it's like,
Uh-huh.
well, yeah. I mean, but that's true professionalism. So I
Well,
salute
and
you to that. Yeah.
thank you. And it'll pay off in the end. It's not worth
Right.
burning bridges. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I like this time management. I like that, how you've built your success by staying true to it. And I did want to touch a little bit about the sobriety because I feel like that plays a big role in your time management and not getting caught up in the scene of playing in alcohol infused
yeah,
setting,
yeah,
right?
sure. And you had asked me about this before we jumped on, and I'm always happy to be super transparent. I don't necessarily shout it from the mountaintops because I feel like if and when it needs to be said, I'm able to share my story. So I'm happy to share.
Thank you. Thank
Sometimes
you.
I feel like if I say, "Oh, I'm sober," in a space where people are drinking and having fun, I don't ever want to make anyone feel like awkward or whatever, because that's kind of like what we do. Obviously, we're
Exactly.
performing,
Yeah.
and the revenue driver for the clubs that we are performing in is alcohol. And
I
so
don't think I know.
I always like to say, alcohol management is a skill set we must all have. Sorry, I need to plug in my computer there. Alcohol management or drug management. Let's just call it alcohol and drugs, because
Mhm.
there could be other things that intersect or uh, whatever the word is, come into the play into the spaces of music. That what they say, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, there's a whole stereotype there for a reason.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
I used to party with the best of them. I partied 8 lifetimes. I had a great time. Boy, did I have a good time. And there's some fun to be had. Okay, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
I think mental health is a very much, especially with the lifestyles that we lead, not just any being around the alcohol and the tendency to abuse it or just party too much, but just in the space of where we are in as performers, and as much as we give, sometimes we become very alone and we don't have any outlets to have the ability to take care of ourselves, and even a community like we do in the Piano Ladies to talk through these spaces, these challenges that we all go through it, because it's a different lifestyle. So I'll say
Yes.
all that to say mental health, I have kind of a genetic predisposition for anxiety and depression. I had in my family. And so I've got that probably underlying. And then you add in the challenges of being on the road and being lonely, and you add in a relationship that was toxic, and I'm self-medicating and I'm
Mhm.
self-medicating, and I
Yep.
have a problem with alcohol, and I think I can stop for a minute and I can't. And enough of that, those years, a wonderful support base here at home, my family. I was always able to come home, get grounded, get to the next step, but then I would think, oh, I can drink again. And I just realized after enough of those years that I can't drink. I have a problem with alcohol. So would I say I came out of the womb as an alcoholic? Probably not. But I developed a problem with it to no much so much to know that I know I cannot drink. So that
Right.
being said, some people can. I wish I could have a social drink. I really do, but I just can't. So
I do, I understand,
that's
yeah.
that's the reality of it, but the flip side and the positive side is I am much better as a person, as a partner, as a performer, as a leader, just in general. Like, I'm able to be happy and healthy. Am I still challenged at times with mental health issues? Absolutely. And that's where I'll go back to that thing about waking up and eating right and some of the things that I've had, because I'm 45 years old last December, and hormones are different at this age with females.
Yep.
So all of the
Yeah, sure.
things, I don't know if that answers your question, but sobriety is something I realized was absolutely imperative to my I mean, I got to a point in my career, I said, I'm either going to have to figure out how to do what I love for a living sober, or I'm going to have to give up what I love to do for a living. So that was really and so now it's not even a thought when I don't even think about it. Like, it's just, this is my
Brilliant.
life.
Yeah.
I used to be triggered and want to try and think maybe I can do this and nobody will know, and I'll have a drink. And then 2 weeks later, I ended up in the ditch of life. Like, that's just, my brain, I abused it enough that my brain does not handle it now. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm not, definitely not a doctor, can't give, medical advice, but I can tell my story and kind of like what happened to me with that. And hopefully if somebody hears that and they need the help, reach out to me. Like, I'll tell you what I did, mostly sobriety is like the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, literally, of anything in my life, getting sober was the hardest thing I've ever done. But if you can get through that, then the world's your oyster. So I say that and share that just to hopefully help people.
I think it really helps, and first of all, I wanna say thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
I heard you mention it at the Piano Ladies convention, and you weren't beating the drum of it, I will say. You just touched on it a little bit, and you touching on that subject and watching you navigate this whole convention and be spot on with everything, I'm thinking, well, the sobriety is definitely helping her,
Yeah.
I too we spoke a little bit about this before the podcast, but I went sober on, January 2nd, California sober, okay? So, and I noticed I had a dueling piano show, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna play with 2 guys who love to drink,
Hmm.
and that is going to be a trigger." And this show is going to test my sobriety. Well, Thursday, my flight got canceled. So I'm like, there's Thursday's show. I didn't drink. Friday, I get there and I'm like, let's see how it goes. And I'm watching my partners drink and drink and drink. And I go, well, somebody has to stay sober here. Somebody's got to be. And I noticed Friday, I had been maybe 2 or 3 weeks clean. I noticed I wasn't tired at the end of my show. And that was the biggest thing for me that I physically noticed in the last hour, where I would usually be my body's starting to slow down. I don't have enough energy to finish the show super strong.
Hmm.
I noticed it was all there. And so the next
That
night,
energy is, but I would say the energy is the first thing you notice. And then everybody, not nine times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, somebody ends up sober and talking to me about it later. The mental clarity that they have is the next thing you're going to be like, oh my gosh. And
yeah,
it's like this fog that you didn't realize you were walking around in. And you're like, oh my gosh, there's like this clear world out there of just, and then that
yeah,
fuels creativity. that
Yes.
I think some of us feel like, and I've tried other, like I've tried medicinal marijuana and stuff like that, and it doesn't, no, no, not good for me. I wish I had.
Anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish I could do some of that because the anxiety is definitely something I still deal with,
Yeah.
but it does no, that's no bueno for me. So,
Sure, sure.
uh,
Everybody's different. But I think in for musicians, it's all around us all the time. So it's so easy to have a drink before, after, whatever. And when you're surrounded by it with our lifestyle, it plays into the show gets done and then you're like, well, what bar is open? Or
yeah.
and it just becomes a whole lifestyle. So I think it is important to touch on this subject because so many of us are around it and we don't realize it. And we like to have a drink and have it on stage.
So yeah, and I really appreciate you bringing this up. And here's my thing. I just want to reiterate, like my fear is that I will alienate someone who drinks, thinks, oh, I never have any, excuse me, any like judgment about the drinking or the space, the partying. I think there are
Yeah.
healthy ways to have all
Yeah.
of that in your life.
Right.
And everybody has a different, but by being silent, I risk not saying something where someone is struggling who needs to find a healthier place with it, who can say, oh, if she did it, clearly, there's a better life out there, or there's a better way. And so I just encourage anyone who, if you think you have a problem, you might need to talk to somebody, or
Mhm.
reach out to me. And if you're lucky and you don't have a problem and you can socially drink and maybe you kept it at a very healthy place, then so be it. And that's awesome,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just happen to be now, I know where my little corner of the world is, and I can be in the happy place and I can be the performer. And I love nothing more than being the facilitator of a fun party and we're all singing and having fun. And I love that. That is what I'm addicted to now. I'm addicted to
Sure.
having fun on that space. And so
Yeah.
that's my frame of reference now.
And the real-time perception of how your pitch is, how your timing is, how everything else is, it does help when you're totally clear.
It's now
So you
we're
don't go
never better. I
say
don't
that like that.
Yeah. I think there's a marginal benefit from the alcohol where I said liquid courage earlier.
Yes.
There's a marginal like, oh, it might help you come out of your shell a bit. So I won't deny
I
that.
agree. I agree. Yes.
But
Yeah.
at what point have you I used to say you're never better when you're drinking. Well, maybe on that first one. Maybe you're like, "Oh, I'm loose and I'm having fun."
Yeah.
As opposed to being stiff and like worried and scared, when we get up there, maybe we haven't found our skin on stage yet.
Yes. Yeah.
However, the risk is you end up thinking you're really good and you're not. You're not your 100%. You're not hitting the pitches, your timing, you become too loose. And so, I mean, there's always an argument for that, I think, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for sharing about that, and I feel in the same space with you, no judgment, but it is important to manage your health and your mental health and your physical health because, as musicians, we are athletes in a way,
absolutely.
especially with what we do. But I wanted to pivot a little bit in this next question. So going to COVID times, because you said you started the Piano Ladies back in 2019, so it was right before COVID hit.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of musicians went on to pivot because there weren't any performance opportunities. What did COVID do for you when you pivoted? And did it get you more into the tech world? Like how did COVID influence you and Cliff's success? Like where did you pivot when COVID came?
Yeah. Well, I think like all creatives, we got creative. Like we were like, how do we get how and survival. I mean, like all of your livelihood is literally wiped off the map for the foreseeable future. And we thought it was going to be 2 weeks. 2 weeks, what? And then after 2 weeks, and it was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
I would say, well, first of all, Cliff and I had kind of dabbled in a little bit of the technology on how to get stream live and like make your sound good. So we had like this iRig and we actually had just started. I was scared to go live online. I was like, I don't know what are people going to think, but we started this private Facebook group and we started adding like, 10 or 20 people. And we were like, we're going to test this out, see how this goes. So we had a little bit of a leg up when COVID happened because we were trying out some new technology
Yeah.
soon as that happened, we just went live to the world. We were like, we're going live. I mean, and really it was not just because I don't know that we were trying to like make money because we weren't trying to like guilt people into giving us money or anything. It was just more like, we're all at home.
Yeah.
Let's just like have some entertainment and do something and then, so yes, the technology side of things, I did dig in there. I will say some of the fans that we made during COVID have been the biggest supporters of ours. And it ended up leading to these incredible opportunities later on in our career that I did not see. So that was a silver lining in that. So these bonds that we formed with people all over the world, I would say that was the biggest gift out of all of that craziness. We went to sewing masks because my mom taught me to sew when I was young. I had a sewing machine in the closet, and I pulled it out because no, you couldn't find a mask anywhere. Like it was not to
Sold
be
out.
had.
Yeah.
What was a mask? Like the word mask was not in anybody's, like maybe in the medical world, but
Yeah.
so I started making these cloth masks, and Cliff was cutting fabric, and we were selling them to our fan base, and we were making good money off of masks.
Love
For
it.
girl, I made over 2,000 masks. If I never
She's
have to,
resourceful. Okay. She's resourceful.
we made, and then I was like, oh, I can order on Etsy all this fun fabric. I probably ordered just as much fabric as I sold in masks because I got a little crazy on like tiger print, zebra, and then I could go all of the sports categories and SpongeBob. I mean, whatever. I got crazy with it. But so I learned a little bit too much about fabrics during COVID. But that would be probably the only downfall that I would say. Other than that, I learned a lot more about being a small business because we were able to apply to idle loans, and we had incorporated in 2017. So there was like PPA and all of this stuff that I leaned into a lot of our local small business association resources. So I learned that.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
I mean, I don't know. I think that was just trying to survive. And then eventually we were able to start gigging a little bit here in Arkansas with restrictions. And so I was at the time, I took on the entertainment director position at Willie D's during that year.
Yeah.
So things got to where we were starting to book piano players back at the club. And so, yeah, I would say a little technology and more community. It really like the perspective of online virtual spaces and how much it really can form a real community around something. It was the biggest takeaway.
It's huge. I do relate entirely because 2020, I was heavily on TikTok, and those fans, those supporters have continued to support me throughout my career since 2020. We're 5 years away, and those people are dedicated supporters. So I always find the through line of that. I feel like a lot of musicians who did go online and try to provide some levity, in that
Mhm.
space did manage to
Yeah.
gain something from it. So that's cool that you did. Yeah. And when was the first release that you and Cliff put out? What year did you guys release your first
Well,
song?
we released a song in April of gosh, I always get this wrong. I believe it was April of 2020. We released
Okay.
our first single. And it was a song that his dad wrote the year he was born, and on his dad's birthday. And we were still working on our songwriting, and this one was an upbeat fun one. We were like, well, we'll just we'll release this and get our artist brand and claim all of the DSP stuff, and
Yes.
get it out there.
Yep.
But we had been together for like 4 years at that point.
Mhm.
Coming off the album release as a solo artist, I went into the studio and I had horns, and I had this whole huge thing all over my album. And then I would go to the piano bar and I'd be like, well, here's the song I wrote, but it sounded nothing like, and I never even performed with the full band. So I was like, I
Mhm.
really want whatever we put out that we can perform as a duo that sounds enough like what we create and put out. And then also just what are we writing about? Who are we as a duo? We wanted to give ourselves time to find that. And then we wanted Fiddle and Keys, the song that we wrote, which was the title track on our album. I wanted to write for the performing. I wanted to write to
Yeah.
perform,
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted high energy fun, like what I love about the live performances, which is 80% upbeat and then maybe throw in a ballad here and there. It's not all
Yep. Yeah.
slow music, which to each their own, especially when it's your art. But that was important. So we released a single here and there, and then finally we had like 12 songs that we put on our first album. That was October of 2023.
Wow. Well, and you guys are staying consistent with your releases too. I noticed. So
Well,
congratulations.
we are now. I'll say last year we were, and they say release a new song every 6 to 8 weeks, but I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a lot.
I know. I know.
That's a lot. And
Yeah.
so what we did, we started writing, and then we've got some that we're working on that are, half baked in the studio. And so we have a plan to do our sophomore album release over the next 18 months that gives us enough like responsible time to do it, produce it, try to hit that 6 to 8 week mark. But if we don't, that's okay. It's the whole
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
there is that on your Spotify is like you want to give your listeners something new about the 6th to 8th week because it starts plateauing after that 5th week
Yeah.
on the numbers.
Yep.
So you want to just inch up. And I mean, I understand the philosophy, but you don't want to do that at the risk of jeopardizing the quality of your music or like all of that. So
Yeah,
it
I agree with
really is
that.
to each their own on that. But with my mindset and my planning, I'm like, okay, we can do this. And we just shot our first music video, which should release in the next couple of weeks. That was
For
really
Spitfire?
fun.
Awesome, awesome. Oh
So we
my god,
found a
amazing.
videography team. So we're trying to marry, a good video, whether it's full on huge cinematic production or just a performance video that's not breaking the budget, but
Yes.
some kind of video element that goes along with each release that we do as we gear up toward that final. Maybe we'll release like 8 songs, and then there'll be 2 to 3 songs on the album that would not have been released, and then we'll drop that sophomore album, and they call that the waterfall release, which is that whole inching up. I geeked
Yeah, it's
out to all
great.
of that stuff, and it's just a lot. But I mean, we've
It
got a
is.
plan,
Yeah.
and so we're excited about that. And our next song will be called it's West Virginia, and we're working with Colt Caparoon in Nashville. He's a new producer we're working with.
Awesome.
Cliff has looked up to for many years, and so he took us on, and so we're just having fun, just making music and see how it goes, and you know the music
It's
videos.
going great. What do you mean? You're on the charts. Like you're saying, it's going great.
Thank you. We hired a publicist, but it's like sometimes you feel like you're just throwing things at the wall and going, "Is this sticking? Like, what is this working?" I guess it is. Like,
Yeah.
we charted not very long, but we were on the charts for the Apple Country Music charts, and we were up there with like Morgan Wallen and Dolly Parton, and we were like, "What?"
Amazing.
And I bring that up, yes, one, to say, yay, we did it, we're doing something.
Absolutely.
However, I like to always explain that was because we had a fan base that we had built through cover shows. And I get a lot of artists coming saying, I would never play Brown Eyed Girl or Sweet Caroline, or you name the songs that we play in the piano bar world. They feel like they've sold their soul to the devil when they play this music. And I'm like, well, first of all, you need to be able to have a great live show. So go do cover shows so you can play music people know and love and learn how to deliver those songs. And it's going to influence your writing. It's going to make you a better performer. You're going to be able to pay your bills through music, most likely, if you do it right. And you will build a fan base. And that fan base was ready to support us
Right.
in our music, which was the only reason we charted, not because somebody knew who we were as a new artist. It was because we had a fan base. And I'm like, if you can synergize your brand with your cover show stuff, and do that strategically, then you've got a winning formula that's got some longevity behind it and some momentum. I mean, it's so hard as an original artist if you don't have that, because then you are leaning on TikToks and like that to start getting discovered. And there's a great way to do that as well. But the
Yes.
financial side is very hard.
It
So,
is.
you know,
Yeah. I'm really glad that you admitted that. I think of Doja Cat, just for example, a huge pop star. Doja Cat was on SoundCloud years and years ago, and she was signed to a label. And she told people in an interview she was putting stuff out sporadically and then was disappearing. And then she started uploading every 2 weeks a single. Every 2 weeks, and then she blew up. But that audience, she built that audience for years of, oh, what's she gonna do next? She was a little wild. So people tune in to see her on live online. Okay, so that her audience was online on Instagram Live and TikTok. But you're doing something where you guys are traveling the world and sharing your music. You know what I mean? So it's wonderful. I'm so honored to know you and to watch your growth because it's just epic. You guys should win. You should win. And the production value on your songs are okay.
thank you. Well, likewise on your music. I'm super proud about your album you just released. And
Thank you. Thank you.
I love, like, what a cool thing to have the flute and it's
It's
such like
fun.
I mean, it's almost like, fiddle, an instrument that someone plays that well that people don't see a lot. Lean hard into that brand. That is
Yeah.
so awesome, because that's a memorable marketing, not just because it's your art, but it's also very easy to be remembered by. I mean,
Yeah.
I can even see a flute in your logo one day or something, like,
Yeah, I know. I'm taking that advice fully. I also like watching people respond because, when it's an instrument that you're like, well, I play this in band, whatever. And then you watch somebody in the crowd, they're like, oh my gosh, he plays a flute.
and on a song that they were like, holy, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that is so cool.
Yeah, there should be a guitar part there.
Yeah.
So, speaking of songs, I have two bonus questions for you.
Okay.
And so I'm going to ask you this. I'm sure you get asked this all the time. What is your favorite song to play at a show?
Favorite song to play. I had that, and that's, that, well, coming from you, I know you know this, but that's not the same as my favorite song, right?
Well, I was going
Typically,
to ask you that next.
okay. Well, okay. So my favorite song to play, typically I would pick a Jerry Lee Lewis song, because I
Okay.
really do love to play boogie woogie. So I'll probably do a whole lot of shaking, Or I
Love it.
might do Chuck Berry, Johnny Be Good, because it lets me lean into what I feel like is my biggest skill set is the piano playing.
Yeah.
I've never been super confident about my voice.
I relate.
I'm now more confident vocally than I've ever been because I've worked with a vocalist and I really feel like I've achieved some things I didn't even know I was capable of. So shout out to Kimberly Kennetts. She is in Vegas. She's changed my life. I had a vocal injury that
Mm.
led me into finding her, which I'm like, now if I could shout anything else from the rooftop, it would be like, if you're a vocalist and you don't have a vocal coach, please go get one because it will
Huge.
change your life and help you prevent from any danger or any injuries in the future, because we all probably will have something happen in our careers.
Yeah.
But if you are, I mean, she rehabbed me and now I'm hitting notes and singing like I didn't even know I could. That's another topic. But anyway, so back on the song, anything that I can play in Jerry Lee Lewis and Boogie Woogie and show out my piano skills, play with my foot, ham it up, that whole thing. That would be what, because I know people enjoy that.
Yes.
Because there again, it's always I always serve, I don't take. It's always about give from the
Yeah.
stage, and I'm reading a crowd. And you talked about me and my big eyes or whatever. It's always because I'm scanning that room. I'm reading people from the back to the front, and I mean sometimes even reading lips. I'm strategically trying to win over every little table I can and making sure they're having fun. And if I see something, or if and I'm pulling from all of that. And so it's always like, what can I do to make people have fun? So I know 9 times out of 10, if I play Jerry Lee Lewis, they're going to have fun. I might get them to sing, but they'll see me do my thing. And then that would be
Well,
fun for me.
you're having fun
Yeah.
up there playing it, so
Yeah.
that translates to them
Yeah.
having fun.
Yeah.
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 Okay, I love it. Okay, and what it can be an original, but what is your favorite song right now?
Oh, my favorite song right now. Well, as I'm thinking of that, I'm going to tell you what my favorite song of all time is real quick. Leon Russell, A Song for You, which is
Beautiful.
the most beautiful song. And it's one I'd be like played at my funeral. It's just such a great song. It's beautifully, I mean, he's one of my favorite piano players of all time. So that's my favorite. It'll never not be that song for me on my favorite
Okay.
song.
Okay.
But favorite song right now, I don't know. I'm gonna go Lainey Wilson, 4x4 by You. Yeah, yeah. I'm just because I love her, and that's the one I'm working on right now to I found a cool mashup. Feel free to steal this.
Okay.
4x4 by You is the same as What's Up or What's Going On, not 4 9 Blondes.
I
So I
think I
throw
saw
in.
that. I saw that on a page. Did you write that on the Piano Ladies page,
I think I
maybe?
may have, yeah.
Yeah, love
Yeah, so
that.
I've been mashing it up and it works great. And so I've still been trying to figure out what I lead with. If I lead with 4x4 and then add it, I always ask the crowd, how many Lainey Wilson fans do I have? And
Okay.
that gives me a kind of a perspective on how much of Lainey I want to do versus the other.
Yeah.
So I blend the two. But fun fact, Lainey released a version of What's Going On her Bell Bottoms Up album,
Oh, I
which I
didn't know
didn't
that.
realize. So she released a version of that. And then Whirlwind's got 4x4 by You on it, which is the same chords. I'm like, she had some influence going
For
on there.
sure.
I think. But
Yeah.
anyway, that would be one. Or I like Pink Pony Club. I mean, I've been singing that one.
Me too.
And I like it.
Too.
I only sing it to the crowd that I know is going to appreciate it. Otherwise,
Sure.
you're kind of some of these Arkansas crowds are like, "What is she?" But when I get a request for it, I'm like, oh, yes, because I know they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, she knew that song."
I
So
love
Chapel
it.
Road, I love her. I think she's great.
Okay, awesome. Well, Susan is great. Check out Cliff and Susan, y'all. Thank you so much for letting me interview you, Susan. Oh, I find you phenomenal, and
Well, thank
I
you.
can't wait to see and hear this musical journey that you and Cliff are on. And thank you so much.
Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Of
thinking of me. Thanks for having me, and I can't
course.
wait to see where our Piano Ladies group goes. Like I'm really excited about this year, and so if anyone's interested in reaching out or wanting, if you're a singing female piano singer or just a piano player, you are welcome to come to Nashville this year.
And the dates are
August 10th through the 14th. Pianoladies.com. You can find us there.
check it out, y'all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.